Hey, this is the World Advice Channel too. What I want to talk about today is the problem with white supremacy. So for this video, I'm going to discuss the problem with white supremacy, the theory slash ideology that you hear all the time, that racist white people, the racist ones at least more specifically, the white people who are racist, tend to use all the time this idea that white people are somehow superior to other groups of people, intellectually and so on and so forth. Okay. So, if you are interested in knowing why their theories is bullshit, especially if you're a person of color, most specifically of all black, because you're tired of the pain and suffering that this theory has caused to a lot of people, that obviously make up our community, let alone to other groups of people that make up the non-white population of the world, then watch this video in order to find out. Okay, so now that I mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the white supremacy theory, the theory that white people, of course, are superior to everyone because they made the world as we know it today, whether it comes down to all the ideas and stuff for different things, like infrastructure, medicine, and of course, specifically technology. Their biggest claim to fame: we created technology through the Industrial Revolution, yada, 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 you know, so on and so forth. And of course, the argument they always make, if we weren't in this world, white people, of course, you know, we didn't do what we did, colonize the world and stuff, we'd still be living like how we did centuries ago. All the shit you hear a million freaking times from them. The simple truth of the matter is that stuff can be debunked with even a basic degree of an understanding of history. Okay, the truth of the matter is, okay, to be quite blunt and honest with you, before I get into that, um, history example, okay, that I'm going to get into, is that the truth of the matter is you cannot claim to be superior to someone when the ideas that you used to create to, or in other words, to simplify as much as possible, okay, if you come up with a great idea, okay, how can you claim to be superior to someone when the very foundations of it was created by another person, and specifically in this case another group of people? Okay, because that's the thing I always found so weird about racist white people, okay, the racist ones at least, okay, is that how can you claim to be superior to another group of people just because, of course, their biggest claim to fame as a community, as a race, whatever you like to say, is of course technology, when literally those ideas were developed, the foundations of the things that make up those ideas, everything from the wheel to the understanding of physics to the idea of self-automation, which actually technologies is fundamentally based off of the windmill, which was invented in the Middle East, so on and so forth. To sum it up as a whole, all the knowledge that was required to develop technology was created by other groups of people that existed simply before, Europe was even a thought. Like, for example, if you even have a basic degree of understanding of history, of course, like this is like grade six level, okay? The world, for civilization as we know it, was developed fundamentally in a place known as the Fertile Crescent, which is, in other words, in today's terms, the Middle East, okay? That is where technology as we know it today in the world, or knowledge more like, for that matter, as we know it, was developed fundamentally, okay? Yes, there were some other groups that developed knowledge independently, like you obviously have Mesoamerica, like the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, the Indians, in the Indian subcontinent, and of course China and stuff. They developed their knowledge mostly on their own. But at the same time, the knowledge and wisdom, when you, let's be honest, when you actually look at it, out of all of those places, where knowledge as we know it for fundamentally developed for um the modern world as we know it today, the best knowledge of all fundamentally was from the Middle East, without a shadow of a doubt. They had the absolute best knowledge out of all of those places, when you really look at it, when it comes to it. It's not to downplay other communities' accomplishments, but they had the best. All of the knowledge we have that developed technology that white people like to brag about was fundamentally based on the knowledge developed in that part of the world. The Middle East, parts of the Middle East and North Africa, like you had the ancient Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Nubians, all that type of stuff, all that knowledge as we know it that created technology as a whole, or I should say led up to it, was, guess what, developed in that part of the world. So in short, to answer your question, how can you claim you're superior to someone if if that knowledge, as we can clearly tell, that started around 6,000 years ago in that part of the world, was developed by people who are not white? When you look at all the historical records and even just depictions, even how the people there to look today, let alone the fact that the world was obviously a lot hotter back then for the most part, you can clearly tell people back then, and of course, even by looking at them now, were quite dark skinned. In other words, they were not white. So if you look at things like that, how the fuck can you tell me, you guys are better than everyone else in the world, for that matter, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, if they never existed, then Europe would have never gotten that knowledge. When we look at the history of Europe, all the knowledge Europe had, which obviously started from the ancient Greeks, to the ancient Romans and stuff, all of that stuff that eventually led up to, of course, the development of Western Europe and, of course, Asian colonialization and all that type of shit, was fundamentally from the Middle East. The ancient Greeks, of course, being the first Europeans who actually were actually advanced for the matter, got most of their knowledge and wisdom from, guess what, the Middle East. And when you look at the people from the Middle East, what do they look like? Do they look white to you? No, fuck no. They don't look white. So how can you claim to be superior to something when that idea, the knowledge you needed for it, um, wouldn't have was developed by another group of people. You can't be claim, oh, I am better than you because I developed this great idea, when the foundations of it was created by another group of people, which obviously if they never developed it, you wouldn't have been able to develop your idea in the first place. So make sense for that matter. How the fuck does that make any sense? And that's the truth of the matter. So, in short, to answer your question, no, white people are not superior to any other group of people, because if you can't claim superior over someone, if the idea is you thought of, you know, um, are based fundamentally on the knowledge they developed. How does that make any sense? And I know people say, well, we still made it better than them and blah 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 blah. Of course, typical white supremacist talk. We improved it. So has it been like for the past few thousand years, that civilization as we know it pretty much has existed. There's been, and this is what people need to understand about debunking the white supremacy mindset, okay? There have been so many great civilizations, okay, that have existed throughout human history, okay, going thousands of years ago, that at the time everyone felt they were invincible. They were never gonna go away, okay? Even before Rome and stuff like that, okay? Like there was many Middle Eastern civilizations from Babylon, Assyria, and other ones as well, like even Persia at one point. It just seemed like they would last forever. And you know what happened? Due to different issues and stuff coming up, overnight they completely lost their relevance, and now you can see their great civilization, when you're going on vacation, which now at this point it's just a bunch of rubble. So my point I'm trying to make is that just because you might be top dog now doesn't mean you're going to be top dog forever, let alone the fact, just to add to that as well, they had a lot of those civilizations had state of the art knowledge and wisdom for the time, you know, and then eventually later on, they got replaced by someone even better. So it's so saying that, oh, we created something good now, and that's proof that we're better, that we're superior to you. That's kind of dumb, because what if someone else comes up in the future? We don't know who it might be. It might be China or whatever, and they create something more advanced than what you created. Doesn't mean they're superior to you. No. So how does that argument make any fucking sense? And that's the truth. So in short, that's the reason why I do not believe the white supremacy myth, the idea that white people are superior to other groups of people. And just to end this off, for this video, of course, when it comes to this white supremacy idea, the truth of the matter is, not only do I think it's stupid, because how can you claim to be superior to someone else, because of course, um, when a lot of that knowledge was developed by another group of people that use as a foundation for your idea. I also want to make it clear, believe it or not, even though the world might seem like we've discovered everything, there's still a lot more to discover in the world. There's still new ideas, new inventions and stuff, and that's where people of color, specifically of course black people, can come in a mix, okay? So if a black person or any person of color, for that matter, specifically most importantly of all a black person because of how much we've been through, can come up with a new idea that can change the world forever, then guess what? It literally debunks the theory, does it? Because at the end of the day, there's still time to come up with new ideas and stuff. There's still no time to come up with new innovations and so on and so forth. And that's the truth of the matter. So to say that you're superior to someone when not only your knowledge was fundamentally developed by someone else before that used to develop your idea, but someone can come up with an idea afterwards who is not white is so stupid to me. And that is the truth. And that's all I have to say. And to people, I'm out. Bye.